see. I have 2.5 cups of bread flour here, and I'm gonna add some green chilies because I'm making green chili cheddar bread today. So I'm gonna add green chilies and some cheese. And I'm just gonna mix those together right now. And it's just cheddar, green chilies, 2.5 cups of bread flour. Just gonna mix it up before I add the water. That looks good right there. Okay, so I have 1.5 cups of water. I'm just gonna mix that up. That's it. So I just have 2.5 cups of bread flour, 1.5 cup of water, and I have some cheese. Oh, I forgot the most important part, which is the starter. Can't believe I almost forgot that. Just gonna pour my starter out. I'm gonna pour most of it out, and then I'm gonna feed it and put it back in the refrigerator. Yeah, this one worked without the starter. I'm just going to mix this up really good. Basically, I'm just going to mix it up until I don't see any raw flour. See, like this, I don't want to see any of the raw flour. I want it all incorporated. And if I was just going to make plain bread, it'd be the exact same ratio of water and flour. Like if I didn't want green chilies and cheese, the recipe would be the exact same. I just want to add green chili and cheese. Really easy. Now it looks wet and sticky, and using a spatula in the bowl like this and mixing it with the spatula instead of my hand is super convenient. If you're going to mix it by hand, you want your hands really wet. Well, actually, that doesn't even matter. I prefer using a spatula over my hands for this part. I'll use my hands later. Okay, if it is mixed, I'm just going to scrape everything off the edges. It's looking really good to me because I don't see any raw flour. Okay, let's take a look at that so you can see. So it still looks bumpy and it looks super wet. Right? You can see the chunks in there, but I don't see any raw flour. That's all I'm after. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to let this sit now, or auto-lease is what this first part is called. But I'm just going to let it sit at room temperature for half an hour to an hour. I like to wait an hour for this first part. I think it works better. But you just cover it with a towel and you do this again. While the dough is auto-leasing, I'm going to feed my starter just by giving it some flour. I'm going to give it bigger than that, maybe 3, I guess. 3 spoonfuls of flour. And then I'm just going to pour in a little bit of water. And I'm just going to mix it up. I know some people really like to go crazy on the measuring and everything, but I just do it by eye. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for a pancake batter consistency. Let's see if I can get a good angle here. I'm gonna mix it up really thoroughly. Okay, my starter is fed. That looks pretty good to me. And you can just add more flour and water accordingly. Make sure you got a nice pancake batter like that. But that looks good to me. And what's cool is I have this out, right? And I'm gonna let it sit. I'm gonna let it sit alongside here with my dough, and I'll know how my dough is doing based on how my starter is doing. Okay, it's been about an hour, and I have my dough here. I'm just going to stir it around just by folding it over. I'm actually not stirring, I'm just folding it over on top of itself. And I'm just going to do that a few times. Just fold it over. Super sticky. I'm still using the spatula because it's not as messy. Just a preference. You can do it however. Okay, that's it. I'm satisfied with that. I'm just doing it a few times. No rhyme or reason, just doing it a few times. I'm not cutting it down or anything. This is it. This is all I did. Now I'm just going to script the edges. Not going to explain the science behind this or anything. Other videos do that pretty good. Just showing you what I do. It's looking good. Now I'm going to leave it alone for another half hour. Cover it, of course. Oh. Okay, it's been half an hour and I'm going to mix this up. You guys can do your thing. It's okay. Go ahead. They're in my space. But don't worry, you're not on camera. You're just in my space. Just kidding. It could be. Sorry, I wasn't trying to kick you out of the kitchen. I'm just going to fold it over the same way I was doing it before. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to leave this out for another half hour and then I'm going to fold it again. Then I'll put it in the fridge. I'm making a judgment call right now. Whether or not I put it in the fridge now or after this. But I'm going to fold it one more time. And I'm basing that kind of on the dough but also on the starter. If you look at the starter, it's getting bubbly. But I want it to raise just a little more first. So I'm kind of just following that. It's been about another half hour. And this guy's ready to go in the fridge. I'm going to fold it a couple times. I'm going to add some salt. Alright, it's looking good. It's looking really good. Alright. I'm going to cover it. And set it in the fridge for 4 hours for bulk fermentation. Ooh, if I could talk. Okay, it has actually been 6.5 hours. I meant to do this sooner, but life happened, which is fine. This is what the dough is looking like. And I have a bowl of cold water right here. I'm just going to dunk my hands in before I work the dough. It's raised a bit. You can see right here, it's like right up against the edge. Kinda. No big deal. I'm just going to get my hands wet. It's a little different than working with other dough because normally you would use flour for that. So your hands, or so the dough doesn't stick to your hands. But since this is a wet dough, it's a little different. I'm just gonna gently persuade this dough out of the bowl. Okay, so I have the dough. Get my hand a little more wet here. And I'm just going to fold it on top of itself. Just like this. It's really already bubbly because it's already sat longer than I planned in the refrigerator, which is fine, it's not a big deal. It just means this part won't have to take as long, I don't think. I'm just gonna do 1, 2. So I folded it in half twice essentially. And I'm just gonna put the bowl over it and I'm gonna leave it there for half an hour. It's been a little over half an hour. I'm going to check on this. This is looking, man, I could probably go straight to proofing right now. But I'm not going to. I'm going to give it a little longer. I'm going to get my hands wet again. The dough doesn't stick to my hands. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did last time. I'm not trying to overwork the dough. I can feel bubbles in here, which is what I want. I want a nice, airy sourdough, so I do want it bubbly. I'm not trying to take out all those bubbles, but I can feel some of them pop as I pull it on the dough like that. Yeah, I could totally go to proofing right now, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let it sit for like 15 to 30 minutes. But that's it. 2 folds. It's been about 15 minutes. Normally I would give it half an hour, but since I let this guy bulk ferment for an extra 2 hours, 2.5 hours, I'm going to go straight to proofing now after just 15 minutes. It is ready. I'm taking parchment paper and spraying it down with some water, and I'm taking some ground wheat I have in the freezer. I'm going to sprinkle it on here. Come over here to the dough. Get my hands wet again. Now this thing looks just like a sticky mess, right? You're like, how is this thing going to turn into anything remotely like bread? But you got to have faith. So I'm just going to work it together just a little bit. Try not to take out too many air bubbles. And I'm just going to move this over onto the parchment paper. And then I'm going to quickly put it in my proofing basket, which in this case is a mixing bowl that I have, a small mixing bowl. And when it raises, I don't want it, because it's going to raise a little bit while it's cooling, and I don't want it to stick to the parchment paper. So I'm going to top that off with some more wheat. Wash my hands first. So just don't want it to stick too much. That's good. Now I'm just going to cover this. Well, it doesn't need to be as tight covered. I'm going to proof it in the refrigerator for 2 hours now. Okay, so my dough has been in the refrigerator proofing for the last 2 hours, and now I have the oven preheated to 500 degrees along with this Dutch oven, and I'm just going to take this dough and throw it in there. Parchment paper and all, just the way it is. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to just cut a nice little spot in the top of the dough with a knife. Oh, there's a green chili in the way. But that's fine, it doesn't have to be that big of a slot anyway. Just so when it expands, it'll have a place to expand. Okay. And now I'm just going to cover it, because this guy is super ready. And I'm going to cook it covered for 20 minutes at 500 degrees. Just like that. Okay, it's been 20 minutes with the covered Dutch oven, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the lid off. There it is so far. Whoop. Okay. Take the lid off. There it is so far. I'm going to leave it in there for another 20 minutes, but I'm going to reduce the temperature to 470 from 500. So I'm just going to take it out. And this is my favorite part. You probably can't hear it because I have the laundry going, but I like to just sit here on a chair and just listen to this bad boy. But you have to let it cool, usually for about an hour before you cut it and you eat it. I let it cool for a few hours. I'm not going to cut this till tomorrow because it's really late at night. Or early in the morning, however you want to look at it. But here's what it looks like. Okay, so it has been about 10 hours. And not that I would normally wait 10 hours before I cut this thing open. But let's cut it open so you can see what it looks like. It does need time to cool normally. 10 hours is a bit much, but that's just how life goes. Okay. Alright, so here's the crumb. It looks really good. It's really soft, or springy, I should say, because all those bubbles and everything. And this stuff is really just, it's amazing. Especially when it's toasted. It tastes way better when it's toasted, but that's what it looks like. It's really good. I'll cut a piece in the middle here. And you can make it crispier if you just give it more heat with the lid off at the end there, or if you just adjust your times, but those are the times that I like. And that's it. All right, well, good luck.